After being drafted by the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2003, LeBron's impact was instant. From 17 wins to 35 wins, the Cavs were just one game behind the Celtics for the number 8 seed out east. And 18-year-old LeBron James managed to bring a value of 18 more wins to the bottom feeders of the league. Cleveland's chances on the draft lottery were slim, as there were 8 other teams with worse records and greater chances of landing the top spots. The Cavs had to settle for the 10th pick in the 2004 draft and chose what they thought would be a sharpshooter in Luke Jackson from the University of Oregon. The Cavs had a golden opportunity to provide the king with the right-hand man to suit his talents, and they blew it. Players they could have drafted that year were Al Jefferson, who went 15th to the Celtics and eventually became an All-NBAer. High flyer Josh Smith, who was drafted 17th by the Atlanta Hawks. J.R. Smith, who was selected at 18th by the New Orleans Hornets. Jameer Nelson, who was selected by the Orlando Magic at number 20. Tony Allen, an All-NBA defensive guru, who was selected by the Celtics at 25. And Kevin Martin, who was selected by the Kings at 26. Throughout the rest of LeBron's 7-year tenure with the Cavs, they would never draft in the lottery again. Therefore, never really being able to pair up LeBron with another young ultra talent. Couldn't really blame the Cavs front office for that, as LeBron's impact was just too strong. 5 trips to the postseason. The team never won one finals game. They underachieved in some ways, considering they employed the best basketball player in the NBA from 2007 and on. I would argue from 2005-2006 and on. They overachieved considering the roster talent they placed around him. The Cavaliers were poor, unlucky drafters, and in instances, they were never committed to the talent maturing there. This mattered later on as the Cavaliers lacked talent, young players to grow with LeBron, and or trade for stars that became available. In 2007, the summer after the Cavaliers advanced to the NBA Finals for the first time, the Boston Celtics, who finished 24-58 the season prior, formed a super team and passed them up in the Eastern Conference hierarchy. This was supposed to be Cleveland's time. With LeBron headed to his 5th NBA season, rather than progress, the 2007-8 Cavaliers regressed, finishing with 5 fewer regular season wins than the 2 years prior and a negative net rating. Boston, meanwhile, acquired 2 stars and won a championship their first year together. The first 7 years of James's career, the Cavaliers acquired 2 helpful players via the draft: Daniel Gibson at number 42 in 2006 and J.J. Hickson at number 19 in 2008. Cleveland was relegated to making moves on the margins. In 2007-2008, Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett were traded to Boston. They beat Cleveland in the playoffs twice and won a championship. Paul Gasol was traded to the Los Angeles Lakers, where he won 2 championships. The Celtics acquisitions are the most notable ones to me here. Is what actually sent LeBron to Miami?
The answer to the question everybody wants to know. LeBron, what's your decision?
In this fall, man, it's very tough. In this fall, I'm going to take my talents to South Beach and join the Miami Heat.
Seeing the direction of the league, he decided to take his destiny into his own hands and made the move to Miami. LeBron was no longer going to let a front office determine his success, which I think is the bigger picture that a lot of people miss when they comment on LeBron teaming up with other players. For 7 years, he had to deal with the front office butchering his chances at a title. So LeBron started developing his own path in his head. Joining forces with Wade and Bosh certified him almost an automatic ring, which is why many people killed that decision. Most importantly, his haters. His haters couldn't stand the thought of LeBron winning rings and felt threatened by that decision. As we all know today, creating a big 3 doesn't always mean automatic wins. In fact, some could even tell you it could actually be a harder path to a title. If even one of your big 3 doesn't stay healthy and or one of them doesn't play up to par to its expectations, things can get ugly very fast.
So let me say 2 things at the same time. One, the Brooklyn Nets are awful. They don't look like a team that could compete with anyone at all. Their defensive efficiency numbers going back to like the middle of December are the worst in the NBA. They can't stop anybody. The Lakers stink!
Creating a big 3 kills the ability to actually build a super team. Not being able to sign good role players and having to fill out the roster with a ton of minimal contracts or players who are getting over the hill, a lot of big 3 roster constructions end up being garbage. Having to rely on those big 3 components day in and day out can take a toll. Let's face the truth, During LeBron's time in Miami, they had the total opposite of what LeBron had in Cleveland. A hierarchy from top to bottom, great ownership, legendary executives, and coaching. Not to mention star power. LeBron wasn't the one picking the players here. There was no room for him in that kitchen. The Miami Heat filled out their roster with vet minimum and aging players. One thing was for sure, Pat Riley knew how to build around LeBron, surrounding him with shooters and athletes on defense. That was the recipe that a lot of folks give credit to Pat Riley for. If there's one thing LeBron loves, it's shooters, especially ones that can play defense. Like every superstar, the front office always sends a cater to them. They ask for their opinions and ideas when it comes to who they feel is best to play with. But the front office has a job to do, and it's quite more complicated than just getting a list of guys from a star player and signing all of them. Miami was well ran and did its job to the best of their abilities. LeBron learned so much from that organization. The biggest was how to build a winning team. Being around Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra, I'm sure did well for the team. Going back to Cleveland, now here's where it gets interesting. Now that LeBron is a well-polished and established champion, already making it to 4 straight finals, and the undisputed best player in the league, part of his agreement to return home to the Cavaliers was to get more power and have some say when it came to actual product on the court. Cleveland now had its own established general manager in David Griffin. He may have been the one devising deals or targeting free agents, but he sure wasn't the one doing either without the approval of LeBron. New coach David Blatt may have been making play calls and substitutions, but LeBron had the veto power. It is believed that no one in league history had the combination of influence and potential LeBron had with the Cavaliers. From orchestrating the Wiggins for Love trade to also approving the Iman Shumpert, J.R. Smith, and Mozgov deals, LeBron was in full control of if a deal should get done or not. He was the megastar, the champion, and he was going to be 100% responsible for bringing a championship to Cleveland. LeBron definitely voiced his opinions and called his shots during the second stint in Cleveland. From firing David Blatt to trading 6 players away in 2018 and overhauling that roster.
They've transformed their roster today in Cleveland, and so now they brought in Rodney Hood from Utah, George Hill from Sacramento, and then obviously Clarkson and Nance from the Lakers. And this is a group now that's signed through next season, that they have under contract. The Isaiah Thomas experiment did not work.
In return, he brought 4 trips to the finals, 8 consecutive for himself, and the first professional championship in the state of Ohio in over 52 years. LeBron did it his way. And if not for a Love and Kyrie injury in 2015, and KD doing the ultimate disgrace decision in 2017, who knows how many more titles Cleveland would have won. Things, of course, weren't perfect with LeBron and owner Dan Gilbert, who already had a history of bad blood. It was only a matter of time before LeBron had enough. There's a saying that LeBron destroys teams and leaves them for hell once he leaves, which is kind of hypocritical. If you look throughout history, when most championship contending teams at some point end up going downhill, the team has to start from ground zero, and they too go through very rough patches. Look at Jordan's Bulls. When Phil Jackson stepped down, he could have easily committed to stay with them and kept the engine going, but he too stepped away, and the domino effect started. How about when Magic left the Lakers? Or when Shaq left the Lakers? Or how about the Spurs today? People just pick and choose what they want to say, but always remember, when it comes to LeBron, it's a different level of hate. LeBron decides to go to LA, where the front office in some ways were kind of like Cleveland's in his first stint. Ownership was shaky and had their own problems. Magic Johnson was still in charge, but then bolted out of nowhere during LeBron's first season. Then ultimately hired first-time general manager Rob Pelinka, who had no previous experience, and for some reason, no other general manager wanted to talk with him. There was a saying at the time that nobody wanted to play with LeBron. He played a whole year with young Lakers, and if it wasn't for his groin injury in late December, that team too would have made the playoffs. Things, however, were getting loud, as it was no secret that when LeBron decided to come to LA, he was going to bring another superstar with him. Incoming Anthony Davis. Though he wasn't a free agent until the summer of 2020, that means the Lakers essentially had to wait 2 years if they wanted to sign him, or make a deal with the Pelicans to bring him in right away. Of course, the Pelicans wanted the entire roster for AD and all of their draft picks. They actually refused to speak with LA in the beginning, and didn't really start talking with him until AD made his own demand that he would only sign a long-term deal with the Lakers, which pretty much scared all the other teams away. Did LeBron want to play with AD? Absolutely. Did LeBron want to approve to trade the entire farm for him? Of course not, but it had to be done. The Lakers swapped Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, and 3 first-round picks for Anthony Davis. General manager Rob Pelinka, I'm sure, worked hand-in-hand with LeBron and now AD to fill out the rest of the roster. And in year 1 together, they brought a championship. Here we are 2 years later. Injuries have piled up the last 2 years, and the Lakers with LeBron are once again fighting this LeBron GM narrative due to the fact of the awful Russell Westbrook deal. The Lakers gave up KCP, Montrezl Harrell, and Kyle Kuzma in a trade for Westbrook. They also let Alex Caruso, who was looking like an all-defensive player, leave in free agency. We can get into why LeBron ultimately wanted this trade to happen. I think we all know. He wanted Russ to help carry the load of running the offense during the regular season. But this has been a disaster. LeBron and AD both wanted this trade to happen, and it hasn't gone well at all. But this notion of LeBron handpicking teammates is not necessarily true. Does he have a say on who he'd want to play with? Yes. Does he actually decide? No. If he did, we'd probably still see Alex Caruso in a Laker uniform. Maybe even players like Lonzo Ball, who LeBron loved. We would even see Coach Lue as a head coach. People just talk to talk. Remember, hate blinds you. At the end of the day, that's what LeBron deals with every day. If you want to believe he's the actual GM, then go ahead and do so. Talk bad about him right now. But then give him his praise for bringing rings to Cleveland and LA his way.